pro wrestling has shared its unique world with a lot of things. One of the great matchups we've gotten are wrestling video games. We as fans get the opportunity to lace up in the boots of our favorite superstars and put them in dream matches or create our very own moments. Wrestling and video games have decades of history together. Like many, we still talk about some of the great games that we grew up with, be it for the awesome gameplay, story, creation tools, or simply the great times we had. That's why we had to go into the deepest, darkest corner of our minds to choose which games have that special place in our hearts. The Byte That team proudly presents our top 10 favorite wrestling video games.
WWE 13 brought back attitude in wrestling games. Ditching the traditional season mode, WWE 13 opted to relive the glory days of the wildly popular Attitude Era. The mode was certainly not perfect, with some frustrating objectives and a slightly disjointed feel, but it was still fun to go back and play some of the most memorable moments in wrestling history. The game boasted a huge roster of both modern superstars and icons of the Attitude Era. They even go as far as to have multiple versions of many wrestlers. That's right, you can have a Triple H triple threat match. The new features that really added to WWE 13 were the ability to create your own custom arenas and your own show schedule in the series' already well-established universe mode. Combining these features allowed you to make your own brand new shows with their own rosters, logos, venue, and custom titles. Want to bring back Sunday Night Heat? Add in NXT with its actual roster? Or add your own brand new themed pay-per-view? It can all be done. The Universe Mode's AI booking is certainly not perfect, and at times can take away from the creative experience. But WWE 13 laid the groundwork for some really exciting features we hope to see improve in the future.
When Wrestlemania the arcade game was released in 1995, it was vastly different than anything else on the market at the time. Moving away from a simulation style of wrestling game and instead focusing on a more arcadey, unrealistic experience, the game felt new and refreshing. Developed by Midway, Wrestlemania felt very much inspired by their hit game Mortal Kombat. In fact, The Undertaker has the exact same moveset as the Mortal Kombat mainstay Shang Tsung, minus of course the transformations. As fun as the gameplay was, the game didn't feature that many modes. You had the choice of going one-on-one against your friends, or play against the computer and go for either the Intercontinental or WWF Championship in a ladder of 1-on-1, 2-on-1, 3-on-1, and gauntlet matches where you face off against the entire roster. Wrestlemania the arcade game was the first of its kind and arguably led the way for other arcade-style wrestling games that weren't afraid to be a little less serious.
The Smackdown franchise has lasted through generations, making its debut on the PlayStation 1. The original Smackdown was a great start, but Know Your Role took everything a step further by expanding the roster to over 50 superstars, adding brand new match types, and a seemingly endless story mode. The game mechanics didn't change much, but they made up for it by adding a ton of moves and even a create a taunt option for your created superstars. It was great to see just how one sequel could expand a game. This game marked the first iteration of the Hell in a Cell match in a video game, and although it wasn't that great, Smackdown 2 actually included a casket match. To accompany all this crazy action, Smackdown 2 included countless backstage arenas. The game may be a little rough on the eyes now, but Know Your Role provided a ton of variety to please a great number of wrestling fans.
In 2004, Day of Reckoning hit store shelves for the Nintendo GameCube. The story mode takes your created superstar down the path of joining either Evolution or the New Ministry, only to eventually break away and face their respective leader at the main event of Wrestlemania. Where Day of Reckoning truly shines is in its gameplay and creative tools. The in-ring action is some of the most polished and fun gameplay to ever grace a video game. The GameCube wrestling games were ahead of their PlayStation counterparts when it came to certain mechanics taken for granted today, such as interrupting opponents' holds and being able to perform moves onto weapons and through tables standing in the ring. The creation tools for Day of Reckoning still hold up as some of the best of all time for a wrestling game, and the Create an Entrance mode was also well designed, and the UI is arguably more intuitive and user-friendly than even recent WWE games. Day of Reckoning is not remembered for being jam-packed with content or all the bells and whistles. What makes this game great is the bell-to-bell action and almost limitless options on what superstars can be created. This game is truly what you make it.
WWE All-Stars turned wrestling into a full-fledged fighting game, and it worked. It doesn't have a lot of match types or the biggest roster, but at its core, that's why it works. The WWE video game market has mostly focused on simulation gameplay, which is why All-Stars is such a breath of fresh air. Picture yourself playing with action figures as a kid. You grab The Undertaker and tombstone somebody from 30 feet in the air. That's what All-Stars is all about. You can choose between different playstyles, which include the acrobats that can springboard off the ropes, the brawlers with striking perfection, the grapplers that can chain wrestle, and the big men, which are the ones with all the power. You could either pin, submit, or even knock out your opponent using your finishing maneuver. If you didn't have any nearby friends, you could also go online and wrestle in singles competition, 3-way, 4-way, handicap, or tag matches. The creation features were a little limited. After creating their appearance, you were limited to a moveset, finisher, and entrance option. However, a very cool feature was the Fantasy Warfare mode, where you were treated to an awesome video package about a hypothetical feud between some of our favorites. Short, sweet, and to the point. That's what All-Stars is all about, and why we'd love a sequel to this great game.
Aside from being a great game in itself, Def Jam Vendetta may have one of the craziest development stories of all time. The game started off as a sequel to WCW Mayhem, but when WCW was bought by the WWF in 2001, the license to produce WCW games went with it. So instead of scrapping the project completely, EA and Aki decided to go with the next best thing: rap music. Def Jam Vendetta brought some of rap industry's biggest names, including Method Man, Redman, DMX, and Funkmaster Flex inside the squared circle. It was created by Aki, the same developer who made the N64 classic No Mercy, and it shows with similar gameplay while being slightly more over the top. The game features were a very bare-bone experience, only featuring a story mode and basic one-on-one, tag team, and fatal 4-way style matchups, but the fast-paced, crazy gameplay more than made up for it. Unfortunately, later installations in the series move away from an in-ring style format, but the strange mix of rap and wrestling turning out to be a great game is what puts this on our list.
WWE Smackdown Here Comes the Pain served as the bridge between the classic and modern era of the Smackdown series. The addition of a new grapple system into the gameplay greatly expanded the movesets of every superstar, making them feel even more like their on-screen counterparts. The game offered a fun branching season mode that allowed for a ton of replay value. This gave the ability to not only choose which storylines to get involved in, but which direction you wanted the story to go. Here Comes the Pain also brought us the video game debut of the Elimination Chamber match, which even in its earliest version was an absolute blast to play. From breaking the glass of the pods to jumping from high up on the chamber down onto your rivals, the game perfectly captured the brutality of the match. Although Here Comes the Pain had fewer backstage areas than its predecessor, Shut Your Mouth, they were far more dense and interactive. You could hit someone with a punching bag, throw them into a container, and even drive a motorcycle. Here Comes the Pain was a very well-rounded game and one of the best entries in the Smackdown series.
Before Day of Reckoning, there was Wrestlemania 19. After a mediocre attempt in the form of Wrestlemania 18, Ukes hit a home run with this title, which came out in 2003. On the PS2 side, we got Here Comes the Pain, which featured more realistic graphics, while 19 took a more cartoony approach to the superstars. The thing that separates this game from others is the in-depth Create a Superstar feature. Not only could you change the colors and form of created people, you could develop pixel-by-pixel logos and add pieces of 3D gear around any part of their bodies. Day of Reckoning took this a step further, but it's thanks to 19's success that it kept being a feature. Wrestlemania 19 Story Mode consisted of Revenge Mode, which for better or worse was different than anything we had seen up to this point. It took the structure of a wrestling game outside of the ring, and unlike WCW Backstage Assault, it actually worked. Now, how crazy could this get? Think about Hulk Hogan throwing Steve Austin off the side of a boat, jumping from chain to chain in a parking lot with the possibility of being run over. You could potentially murder someone by throwing them off a harbor in a modified cage match in the middle of nowhere. All of this just to get revenge on Mr. Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Wrestlemania 19 gave away simulation wrestling in favor of a fast-paced, fun, and creative gameplay.
WWF No Mercy is considered by many to be one of the greatest wrestling games of all time. It was the pinnacle of the N64 wrestling game. It took everything that games like WrestleMania 2000 and WCW vs NWO World Tour did and perfected it. No Mercy had a roster of over 60 superstars, all with 4 alternate costumes, and in some cases, an additional costume would end up being an additional superstar. To add to this, you were able to edit any of the superstars in their costumes in any way you wanted. In the ever-evolving wrestling world, it was fun at the time to keep up with cosmetic changes as they were happening on TV. No Mercy Story Mode is also part of what separates it from any other wrestling game. Different stories were split up by which title you wanted to challenge for, and once you started going down a title's path, there were numerous different branches each story could take. This added a ton of replay value to the story mode because you could go for the same title more than 10 times and end up with a different story progression each and every time. No Mercy is a game that is fondly remembered by wrestling fans for many reasons. In fact, there are still No Mercy tournaments at wrestling conventions to this day. With some aspects of the game still holding up, video game developer Aki truly created a wrestling masterpiece.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to reveal our number 1 favorite wrestling video game.
WWE Smackdown vs. Raw 2006 is Byte's top wrestling game of all time. Why? Because it was the first wrestling game to have online play beyond just a one-on-one matchup. You and up to 3 friends could play against each other in a variety of matchups. Or, if you were like us, you could create a lobby and mess around doing crazy spots until the game would disconnect on you.
06's new features did not stop at an expanded online capability. It also added GM mode and Create a Belt mode, which let you create your own custom belts that you could defend online against your friends. The game also added the long-requested Buried Alive match. The match proved to be not very practical for a video game, which is why it was ultimately scrapped from future games, but at the time, it was a promising addition to the series.
Smackdown vs. Raw 2006 is remembered for being the game that set the bar for a fun online wrestling game community. The combination of the endlessly fun online play and other well-polished features from years past, including story mode and create a wrestler, is what puts this game over the top and into our number 1 spot. And there you have it, our top 10 favorite wrestling video games. If there's a game you think should be on this list, let us know by leaving a comment below. Remember to follow us on social media, including Twitter, Facebook, and subscribe to this channel for updates. Check out our weekly podcast, available every Wednesday on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and our website. And if you want to know more about our top 10 favorite wrestling games, listen to episode 36, where we talk about the games on the list and how their placement came to be.